everybody, and welcome to another comic episode of Games My Mom Found. I am Mike Albertin, and who is the Cape Crusader with me tonight?
Just me, Stefan JD.
Yep, we're bringing another episode, another dual episode of just us.
Yes.
And this week, I think I'll introduce what we're talking about, since this was my pick. Because I always wanted to read this story for years, and I finally forced myself to.
And
so I'm okay with that. We're going to be talking. I am about it. We're going to be talking about Batman Hush, which is a comic book from 2002. It ran for about a year. I mean, the idea with these comic episodes that we bring you about once a month is to take something that you might have heard of in passing, something that you might not be familiar with, and kind of educate you on something that you might have never read or never even knew existed, and kind of educate you a little bit and entertain you at the same time. And obviously there will be spoilers for Batman, but again, none of this really matters because all this has been retconned and reversed and everything by then in comics, so it doesn't hurt anything.
That's comics.
Well, because you had two reboots since it. You had the New 52, and then you had the Rebirth a few years ago, so none of this is all, none of this matters anymore.
Yep. Sadly. Because some of it's really great and some of it's not. I don't know. It's varies.
I enjoyed the whole series. But I do want to say that one reason why I did pick this is because I listen to another comic podcast all the time, and they always talk about Batman Hush. And I only know who Hush is because of Arkham City, because he's in that game in a side quest.
Yeah.
I had no idea who it was before.
That was actually really surprising that they included him in there. Not because I didn't like it, but just because out of all his rogues gallery, I was like, well, I didn't think they'd go deep diving with Hush, of all of them. But I mean, it's cool that they did.
He's in two comic story arcs. He's a very probably C-list character, I think, or something.
I'd say he's B-list. I mean, he's done some shit like in Hush Returns, which we won't cover. He does a lot of big stuff in there. So yeah.
No, we're just covering the first 12 issues of Hush that are also in a trade paperback that also have a movie, animated movie, which I've never seen. We won't be talking about that too much, but it might come up.
Yeah. So this is your first time reading this, right, Mike?
It was, yes, and it was. And I'm not a comic fan. I don't read comics. I've read more comics since we started doing this comic special than I have in years. So I like comics. I just don't read. I like to collect them and look at them on the wall.
Yeah. And if anyone knows, obviously I'm an avid comic collector. I have my pull box each month. It's usually a lot of Image comics, sometimes DC, sometimes Marvel. It depends on what's going on because it's really hit and miss right now. But anyone who's reading comics knows that.
Yeah, I don't read them, but I listen to comic podcasts. Does that count?
Yes.
I do want to say, I had no memories. I had no any type of experience with this comic and before, just about hearing it about passing and people talking about it as one of these great Batman stories. So I've always had an interest in it and wanting to know more about it.
Mm-hmm.
It gets kind of dark. Even in the beginning, because and when in the first issue you have him dealing with Killer Croc, and man, did they make Killer Croc look like a freaking monster in this first issue.
Yeah, and before we even get into it, because this story's long. And we do want to get through it, but we should at least talk about...
Do that stuff to say.
Yeah. Well, two things. First, my memory of this is that I've read comic books ever since I can remember until about I was 13. I think I remember my girlfriend coming into the room and being like, I left my comic books out, and she's like, ew, you read comic books? It's yeah. So what? and then I just quit reading them for I don't know, I want to say 5 years or 6 years until I was 18, basically. And then I fell back into them, and one of the first things I got was Hush. So this is actually my going back into comic books. Hush was one of the first things I picked up, which was probably circa 2006. So I think it had already been out a couple of years. Right?
Yeah, it came out 2002 to 2003
by
Jim.
So, Jim Lee. Yeah. So the other pretty interesting thing is that if most people know that Jim Lee left Marvel pretty much at the peak of his fandom there. Like when he was the most famous, he sold the highest selling comic ever in X-Men issue 1, which I think sold 6 or 8 million, something crazy like that. And he went and helped
too.
yeah, it's a good one. We'll get into that some other day.
I
but
never read it, but
basically, he went on and helped form Image Comics with Rob Liefeld, Will Tasio, Todd McFarlane, all the big names. Yeah. So then he created Wildstorm, which was his studio, and that thing blew up. And then over time, he eventually sold it to DC Comics. And one of the things he wanted to do was he wanted to test if he could still do monthly comics because he wasn't really drawing anymore. And the first thing that he tested himself with to see if he could still do it every month, because he was getting older at that time, was Batman Hush. So this is kind of like a big deal, because it was like, oh my God, Jim Lee's finally going to draw Batman, because he'd done his own stuff and he'd done every character in Marvel, So
I didn't know until we started, right before we talked about this, this was his first DC comic, because I know right now he's exclusively a DC artist, I want to say.
Yeah, he's running some directing thing in DC. He explained it basically that he talks to the people who are creating things and the artists and like the creators. He like tries to make sure they both understand what's going on. I don't know. I forget what his official title is.
Okay. I can't remember. But now as we dive into the comic again.
Yes, we're going
it's
back.
funny. We talk about stuff before we record, and as soon as I hit record, everything goes out the window, and I'm just like, well, what did we say? What happened? The same thing after we shut off recording. I'll be editing. I'll be like, what? I said that? When did this happen? When did he say that? I know recollection, and I understand. I listen to other podcasts. People be like, once you stop recording, I don't remember nothing. It just goes out the window, and I'm like, yep, that's what happened. You turn it off, and you're like, your brain just shuts off.
That's very much podcasting.
It is. But what I want to say about Killer Croc is I didn't really know Killer Croc much. Like the Killer Croc to me was either from Arkham Asylum, where he is a big monster, but really the Killer Croc from the Batman animated series looks like a big, overgrown hick man or something, like some guy. And then you look at the first issue, and he's a giant freaking monster.
Yeah, he looks amazing in this. Jim Lee did a great job with him and I think they even go into like the psychology of like, he's starting to feel more animal now than man. And doesn't he kidnap a kid for ransom is what it is?
Yeah, he kidnapped a kid for ransom, and then he gets the ransom money, and that's where Batman comes involved, is to stop him and rescue the kid.
Right.
And all Killer Croc cares about is the money, because he's trying to, they said they could reverse him, so he would not go completely animal as he's going.
Right, because he's trying to look for a cure, and Batman even, I think at one point, offers him, like, let me help you. And Croc's like, no, Batman, I'm going to crush you with a rock,
I've never really, knew much about Killer Croc or cared much about Killer Croc, other than Arkham Asylum, but it was cool. It was cool seeing him in this and seeing him really kind of be the monstrous type character that he can be.
Yeah, it's always great. Mm-hmm. And it's just funny how all the comic book characters have other animal villains. Like Spider-Man has Dr. Octopus, and Batman has Killer Crocodile, Catwoman.
Oh, part of that's called the 60s, except Killer Croc's way later.
Yeah, I think he was.
Dr. Octopus, all that.
Mm-hmm.
His first appearance is the same first appearance as Jason Todd, by the way.
Killer Croc?
Pretty sure. Or very close to it. I know because I've seen the book.
I think I own the book. Yeah.
The other thing about Killer Croc is in Suicide Squad, that was not Killer Croc. I was very upset when Killer Croc was a guy wearing a freaking hoodie.
Oh yeah, we don't talk about that movie.
Hey,
but you're right.
The winning movie, sir.
Oh God, but you're right though. That was a terrible interpretation of Killer Croc.
I saw it once. I enjoyed it in theaters. I don't remember a whole lot of it. Never seen it again.
But yeah, back to Hush.
Hush. Hush. I thought I heard her calling my name. No, Hush. Yes.
No,
it was coming. No. All right. Well, the next part of the comic is you also find out that Batman feels something is off with Killer Croc, that he kidnapped someone because he doesn't have that's not normally his type of crime. And then right after he has the money, he fights Killer Croc. Catwoman comes in and steals the money, which is not that far off from Catwoman. She takes the briefcase. And I think he seemed like a little off about it too. But the one thing that's very interesting is as he's chasing after her, he gets his he gets his bat rope cut by somebody. They don't say who they so yeah, I guess that's what what do I call it? Rope?
It's grapple hook. Yeah.
Yes. I blame the blueberry beer up
there. But yeah, it gets Catwoman says something really, I forget the one line, but it's something cool. She says like when he's right behind her on her ass and she's like, that's the only thing you're gonna catch tonight or something. And then that's when his bat line gets cut and he literally falls from the top of the buildings, and he tries to stop himself on a, what's it called? A gargoyle statue.
Yes, but the quote is as he's chasing after her, like the view, it's about the only thing you're going to catch tonight. And it is funny.
Yes.
He's a very sassy character.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, he tries to catch himself on a gargoyle and ends up like breaking his arm or something about his shoulder, and then he falls down pretty far and ends up getting really freaking almost like killed.
Yeah, and this is like Batman like caught off guard, so he's literally like he's smashed against the pavement, and now he's just in like a crime alley where all these bums are like, oh look, it's Batman, let's go take him out, you know. And
they have knives too.
Yeah,
they all got knives and they're coming like, let's go get him. Some guy's holding a freaking like club or something. I have the comic pulled up right now. And then I guess it has like one of those cliffhanger type endings for a comic, which is actually a pretty cool image, where you find out that Catwoman was bringing the money to somebody, and she's bringing it to Poison Ivy.
Yes.
And then in the last page, you have money wrapped around in Poison Ivy's hair, which actually looks really cool, by the way. And Catwoman has the green eyes, which means she's being controlled by Poison Ivy.
Yes.
And again, Poison Ivy's another one of those characters that I really didn't know much about until Arkham Asylum. That was Arkham Asylum really was my introduction to Batman.
Wow. Yeah, I knew about her from the animated series, which I grew up with. And then I also read about her in like other comics I grew up with, like Batman Nightfall. She's in there and stuff like that. She's a cool really character.
A really good movie, Batman and Robin. She's in that too.
I don't remember that movie.
I never seen it all the way, and I'm okay with that. That movie is terrible. What I remember.
I don't recall that movie. That's weird.
But then it picks up into the second issue where it introduces another. Again, this one thing that was really interesting about the story. It just brings in so many different characters that, well, to me, it was like, you know, something brand new every issue. And I thought it was really interesting to read. Like I couldn't put this down. And then you have a scene where, because Batman always has a team of people that work with him for a guy that's always alone. And I had forgotten, like, Huntress ends up showing up. Huntress is one of those characters that never really, they don't do anything with, I feel like. If I'm wrong, I don't know. I don't think I am. She's in an episode of Arrow.
I mean, she's in a lot of things. She was in Batman, what's it called? No Man's Land. She has a big part in there.
I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, it's like an earthquake that destroys basically Gotham City, and like everyone, it's kind of like Dark Knight Rises, like where the criminals take over the city and like they're secluded and like the rest of the nation doesn't know what to do, you know. And Batman's there going to, yeah. So
movie, I haven't forgiven it still. It took my money and I saw it on release day and I haven't forgiven it yet.
Yeah, so she's got some good parts, and you know, I hate to like throw this out there too big, like too harsh, but like Jim Lee can draw like the sexiest women, and goddamn did he draw Huntress like so good. Oh my god.
Like a very sexy version of Hawkeye in a way. Without the bow. She has a staff and martial artist and beats the crap out of people. Maybe she has a crossbow. But
crossbow, yeah.
The important part is after you have Huntress that rescues Batman, beats up all the bums, you see somebody wrapped in bandages looking over and what's happening. And if you played Arkham City, you saw the one scene. It might mean something. I mean, I already knew what Hush looked like, but it's because of Arkham City. And I thought that was really cool because then you see Poison Ivy gives the money to somebody, or half the money, and you find out that there's somebody working with her. And that, I was getting really interested. I mean, I already knew what the story was, essentially, because it's an old comic from 2002.
Yeah, so, and it does, like, try to have this little, like, detective work for Batman, like, because later on, like, a little bit after that, we see that Two-Face Harvey Dent has his whole face repaired, and he's wrapped in bandages. So it's trying to throw you off of who the guy is that's wrapped in bandages, which it doesn't do a really good job of, I don't think, but it's fine. Like, that you end up knowing who it is.
I think it does a pretty good job. I mean, I was really confused. I'm like, wait a second, that's not who Hush is supposed to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was thrown off by that. That's not till later, but I do like the part where after Batman is all beat up to all hell, and they just show there's pictures of him just beat to hell. All just from the fall that he took, and then he has a doctor comes in who's supposed to be a childhood friend that never existed in the comics until this issue. But Thomas Elliot, which I thought was funny too. Like, I like how they go into his backstory and they talk about how they were friends when they were kids and how they played together, and then his parent died in a car accident, or his father died in a car accident, and they talk a little bit about that. And this is all before Bruce Wayne's parents get killed.
Right. And so Thomas Wayne tries to save Thomas Elliot's parents, and he only can save his mom. So it is before they're killed, but they all know each other very well. And then when Batman needs help on surgery, Alfred tries to help him because Alfred's like, he was in the British Army, I think. And he's like, this is beyond my repair. Like, I can't do this. I can't do this with my skills. You need someone else. So he uses Thomas Elliot to help him repair Bruce Wayne back to physical health, basically.
He does like Morse code to tell him to call Elliot because he can't talk.
Right.
And another thing we hadn't mentioned yet is throughout the issues, you'll have a speech bubble of Oracle talking to him. And for someone that hasn't read any Batman issues at all in this thing, I mean, I know who Oracle is because of other stuff, but I thought that was kind of cool. Oracle is Barbara Gordon, who's Batgirl, who ended up getting shot by Joker in a different story and is paralyzed and is also an Arkham Knight. Yep. In the Arkham series, but she's in a wheelchair.
Yeah, so she's there's a funny part too where they're in the alleyway and she's like, Batman's down, or whatever his code name is, like Major 1 down, and she's like, can anyone help? Is anyone in the area? And Huntress is like, I can do it, and she's like, is anyone else in the area?
I didn't catch that. At least I don't remember that. I read this about a week ago. There are some cool, and then coming up, there's, after you have all that happen, there's a fight with Batman and Killer Croc, which I thought was pretty damn cool because he almost, like, they have a thing where he's holding Batman down and about to, like, looks like he's about to just gut him. Yeah, he says he's gonna do, and then they have Amanda Waller, and then you find out it's all Batman's plan is to have Killer Croc released to follow him where he's going, to find out who's behind this, because Batman has said that there's no way Killer Croc could have put this together and made this decision on himself. He doesn't think like that.
Right. He's not intelligent enough. So
no, I mean, he's essentially an animal, close to it. I mean, all I can think of Killer Croc is running on top of rafts and trying to collect the flower, but that's a different thing. I really want to play Arkham again.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to sometime soon. But so Killer Croc runs off. They catch him, and a mysterious figure, like on a building over from where they catch him, is watching with binoculars. And there's this cool thing. It's the same dude wrapped in bandages. We don't know who it is yet. But there's a cool thing where the lettering lit up on the building, whatever the full name is, it doesn't show it. It just shows the beginning of it. And the beginning of it says Robbins. And it's kind of hinting at what's going to happen in future issues. Oh,
I never caught that. I mean, I see what you mean now. I'm looking at the issue. But also, you have, for the first time, at least in this arc, you have where Catwoman and Batman kiss. They start to kind of end up with a relationship for like at least for this arc.
Yes, they're finally saying like, "Hey, we've been chasing this. We've done this a long time. Let's just see if we can actually make it work."
And I thought it was funny because I mean, at least for a guy who didn't read comics, I thought she knew who he was, but in this, she doesn't know he's Bruce Wayne, but he knows who she is, of course. And Selena Kyle knows Bruce Wayne.
Yes,
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and it's like a big deal that Bruce is like, okay, I'm going to trust you with this. And he shows her like, hey, I'm Bruce Wayne. And she's like, oh, wow. All right. Now I understand that you really are going to trust me. And you do love me in some way.
And then there's one scene in the 4th issue that I really like. There's a scene when they're talking about when they're kids. And it's Thomas Elliot, like the surgeon, and Bruce Wayne, and they see Green Lantern, but not the Hal Jordan Green Lantern, the one from the Silver Age, which I can't even remember his name. But I thought that was, I always find it cool when they take characters like that and they find a way to introduce something from like the 60s and saying, oh, it was around when they were kids, because it's, even though it wasn't, but I just, that part really made me smile. I'm also a big Green Lantern fan, so.
Yeah, I mean, the callbacks like that are pretty cool. What was his name? Alan Scott, I think that was his name. But yeah,
that's his name.
Yeah, because
I forgot that he's one of the ones you don't think about.
Yeah, and the reason why that happens, that callback, is because Bruce goes to Metropolis, where Ivy has gone, and she's giving the money to Hush, who we still don't know who it is. And this is after Thomas Elliot has repaired him, and he's
starting to be normal again, but he's still injured. And then they end up fighting with Cat. I mean, I always like Poison Ivy, and they have scenes of her strangling Catwoman and fighting her. And then at the very image of that issue, which I actually had read this from a different story, you see Poison Ivy standing with Superman, and his eyes are all green.
Yes, and he's got a little ivy leaves around him, to show that he's under her control. It's great.
I mean, I had actually read this issue before, because at one point when I was all excited for that Batman v Superman movie to come out, and before it came out, I was excited, and I bought this comic at Barnes & Noble's that was the 5 best Superman Batman fights, and I'm all excited, and I'm reading it, and this is one of the issues in there. It wasn't, and then the movie came out. Yeah. This issue is, I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed seeing them fight each other while he's controlled. Because he's being controlled by Poison Ivy. I mean, and they just do a great job with it. And it's normal Superman stuff, Batman stuff. I mean, Batman has a kryptonite ring inside his belt, because of course he does.
Yep. There's a line he mentions where he says, "I have to know that at some point underneath all of it, Clark is trying to resist it." The Ivy's control over him, which it's just great hearing him say that. I don't know why.
In all honesty, he could just kill him. And he knows it. He even says it in the issue. He's like, he could kill me in one thing. I am just hoping that he restrains if we don't fight back at first, if we try to escape. And it is just cool watching them fight as you're looking at this comic. And he always has the Ivy around him at all times.
Yep.
To show that he's not normal Superman. And it's always cool watching Batman punch Superman in the face with a kryptonite ring. I don't know why. It's just cool.
That's actually it is, and that's actually a very famous splash page that I forget who does it. It might be Alex Ross or somebody, but they do a reverse splash page of that where Superman's punching Batman the same exact way.
It's probably Ross, because Ross does really good. And the way that they bring Superman back to normal is Batman tells Catwoman that she has to grab somebody from
the Daily Planet.
And she grabs Lois. And by grabbing Lois and throwing Lois off the top of the building, it's able to snap Superman out of it to go rescue Lois, because he's not going to let anything stop her or stop him from getting hurt. Something like that. I don't know if that made any sense.
No, it did, and that's what happens. Yeah, and it literally saves their ass, because they're right about to bite the dust. Well, at least Batman is. And
I like that too.
Yeah, it's pretty great, because it draws on the fact that Superman, his love for Lois is so strong that it could overcome the poison control of Ivy, which is great.
Does she know that Clark Kent is Superman at this point in the comics? You know offhand?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure, and I don't read enough, so especially not this year.
Yeah, I think there's a little mention of it in the comic. I can't remember specifically what it was though, but I think she knows.
But speaking of Jim Lee drawing sexy women, he draws Poison Ivy sitting on a bed with money all around her, and he's very good at drawing women.
Oh my God, he is.
But I do love the scene. Like, how'd you find me? And then she opens the door and it's Crypto sitting there floating, growling at her.
If people don't know who Crypto is, that's like Superman's super dog.
It is, well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little white dog. Just with a little cape, and he has a little S on the collar. He's great. I like Crypto.
He's cute.
Also a really old character.
Oh yeah, he's been around since forever. God,
back in the really cartoony, terrible old comics. He's in those from like the 60s, I think, or 50s, something like that. The old ones that are when the comic code was around, you couldn't be, because comics were making people, kill people and stuff like that. Yep, the comics.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Superman's the first superhero comic ever, so he's been around since the 20s, I think. So I think Crypto had to have been thought up like way before the 50s. I don't know. I could be wrong, but
if only we had the ability to look up stuff in front of our faces. 1955.
Okay. Yeah. So it was around there.
And Streaky the Super Cat came out in 1960.
That's cool.
You're like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't know. It's an orange cat they made in the 1960s. So don't ask me. Okay, back to more important things.
Yeah.
So this arc, next place it goes is again. It introduces another one of Batman's rogue gallery. You have Harley Quinn that comes in.
Mm-hmm.
I did like her. I mean, I like Harley Quinn in general. I always enjoy it as long as they have her and they don't have her being the whole completely falling for all the abusiveness of the Joker. That sometimes can get a little I don't like it. It's like giving me a little too much sometimes when really go into it, whereas like she just doesn't even understand how terrible he is.
I think it's just her. She has the Stockholm syndrome is what it is, Yeah,
sometimes I guess it's really when people compare themselves, like I want a relationship like Harley Quinn and Joker, like
yeah. No, you don't.
That's but I did like it that they bring her in here, and then also like one of the big things with her in this issue is that she takes the necklace that Thomas Elliot is wearing. He's wearing this green necklace they talk about that he had gotten from his mother before his mother had passed, and it means everything to him. And she takes it, which completely just pisses him off, and which I thought was cool. And
right.
I mean, just everything like in this whole issue, you see Catwoman and Harley Quinn fight, and just Harley Quinn being Harley Quinn, jumping around. People have guns, and it's just very entertaining.
Yeah, and this all takes place at an opera, so there's a lot of theatrics going on with Harley Quinn, especially where she just shows off these like insane aerobics and gymnastic skills, and Batman and Catwoman are like trying to catch up with her, but it's really hard, and she leads them out into the alley where Thomas Elliot chases after her for his necklace. And immediately as Batman turns the corner, well, right before then, he hears a gunshot and he jumps out there and he sees the Joker standing over Thomas Elliot's dead body, who has been shot in the heart.
Oh, and if you do collect Funko Pops, there's a Funko Pop of this Joker.
Oh gosh.
Of him standing on top of something and the hair all crazy like that and holding the gun. Yeah. I don't know if you're holding the gun, but there's a Funko Pop of Jim Lee collection. I have the Wonder Woman one from that set, but yes.
Oh, nice.
For those that collect Funko Pops that listen to the show.
Yeah.
There's someone out there who does.
I don't.
Them, unfortunately.
I collect NECA. Yeah.
Those things are not cheap.
Oh, no. But Batman sees Joker standing over Thomas Elliot's body, and he immediately loses it because that's still his childhood friend. And he goes over there and literally starts beating the shit out of the Joker, which he's done plenty of times before, but this time he really wants to kill him. Like this. This is the one
It's
that's going to
great.
push him over the edge.
Like in
Yeah.
the scene, in when it's happening, he's having flashbacks of what happened to Barbara Gordon. He's having flashbacks of what happened to Jason Todd.
Yep.
And it is just great. And he just keeps hitting him. And finally it's Catwoman who has to grab him with her whip to try to restrain him. He's about to fight her too. But he does hit her because he's so, he is so upset about what happened, and he just had enough of Joker because one thing about Batman, he always asks himself, if I would have stopped him sooner, if I just would have killed him, he wouldn't have killed all these people. He wouldn't have done this. This wouldn't happen if I just would have stopped him one time.
Mm-hmm.
And I do love how that ends. Like, he's about to kill him, and then a gunshot goes off and shoots off part of his little ears on his helmet, or whatever the hell they are, the bat ears.
Yeah, the bat ears.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's Jim Gordon standing behind him holding the gun, just being like, I can't let you do that.
Yeah, because Jim Gordon's been there too, where after what happened to Barbara, because Joker shot her, as we've said previously, he was in the same position where he wanted to kill the frickin' Joker, and Batman stopped him and calmed him down, and now he's reciprocating by doing the same thing and trying to say, like, look, we both want him dead, but you can't do it. You just can't. Because
he even said, if you kill him, then I'm going to stop you, which is a lot like the Dark Knight.
Yep.
So, and then in the very end of that scene, you see again the bandaged guy watching over what's happening, which you'd seen multiple times. And flips a coin. I'm like, wait a second, this isn't Two-Face. This is a different character. I'm like, what? What's happening here? And again, the only reason I know who it was is because of Batman Arkham City.
Yeah.
Oh, funny thing I had not mentioned, in Arkham Asylum, there's an Easter egg in that first game. When you go in one of the medical examining rooms, on one of the billboards, it says Tom. It'll say the doctors that are working there, and it says Thomas Elliott.
Yep, it's a riddle.
If you knew that.
Yeah,
it's a riddle. Oh,
yeah. Okay, it's a riddle.
Are you gonna platinum that too next?
Maybe.
It's not easy. I'm pretty sure. None of them are. So.
It's not. I did platinum Arkham Knight though, so that's out of the way.
That's impressive. But the game is not good.
Thank you.
I don't like Arkham Knight.
Yeah, but it's a good game, Mike. What are you talking about?
I need to replay it. But I played it once. I played it at a bad time. I didn't. I don't even remember I even beat it. I'm actually about to replay it because it's going to be on PS Plus here soon.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's this month. Yeah, so it is Batman month, people.
This will be released sometime in December. So
yes. So after this all happens, yeah, the next issue, Batman doesn't kill the Joker. And
spoiler alert.
Later. Yeah, and he suspects what?
Alternate comic where he kills him.
Oh yeah, there's a lot, like Injustice and stuff.
I'll stop cutting you off.
That's all right. We both got a lot to say about this. It's okay. So what I was saying is he suspects that from a ballistics report that the Joker didn't do it because it doesn't match up. And that leads him to think that someone new or old is trying to get to him because the Killer Croc acting weird and the way he was doing his things, and then Poison Ivy, it felt like something was off with her. So now he's starting to suspect that somebody either knows who he is or they just want to take him down, and they're using his rogues gallery to do it. And this is around the time where what we said earlier, where he reveals to Catwoman that he's Bruce, and Tim Drake, who is the third Robin, and this is before he becomes Red Robin, he shows up and he just starts freaking tangling with Catwoman immediately.
And also, you also find out that the guy you saw in the bandage that flipped the coin is Two-Face in disguise as the guy in bandages, which threw me completely off.
Right. It just keeps doing it over and over. But
and there's some good stuff though. And then also he ends up going after the Riddler, who's doing a crime that he felt fit the Riddler, that didn't feel odd or out of place. Like everyone else is doing something that didn't fit what they would normally do.
Right.
Which was also interesting.
Doesn't he use like a detective mode too to see that there's like weird fingerprints going away from the
Yes.
crime scene or something. Yeah.
Something like that. Throughout the issues, they show like what the detective vision from like if you play the Arkham games, and they do have that a lot. There's something close to it because he's the greatest detective. And yeah, I do like so you get into right now we're at issue 9 out of this 12 issue set, and you get into a part where he ends up hijacking a plane to kidnap Talia al Ghul, who is the president of LexCorp for some reason, because because Lex became president of the United States, and like what you're supposed to do, he gave up and not controlling it while he's president.
Yep.
That's weird. But so Talia al Ghul's in charge of it. He kidnaps her, and that was cool to me. Like I really liked that part. He only did it for one reason, which I mean, anyone who knows Batman, he did it to get the Ra's al Ghul's attention.
Yep.
Man, I want to play Arkham games.
Which immediately happens because as soon as he goes back to the Batcave, there's already a sword there, like saying, "Hey, let's meet up because I'm going to kill you, detective." And he literally goes all the way over to probably the Alps or wherever Ra's al Ghul is, and they have a sword fight. Wow, Catwoman,
super freaking cool.
Yeah, it's always cool to see them fight because they are so alike but so different at the same time.
And he also leaves Catwoman in charge of holding on to Talia al Ghul, and she gets attacked by another character I only know because of Arkham Origins. Shiv is her name, I think.
Lady Shiva.
Saying it wrong? Lady Shiva. Yes. Yeah. Which is a boss in Arkham Origins. Yeah. Again, a lot of my backup for anything recent with Batman is all the Arkham games, as I've said too many times in this episode.
Yeah, it's okay. She's like very, I don't know. She's a very background character. Every time I read
character,
it depends on what you read. Like
I didn't even know she existed until Arkham Origins. Never even heard of her before.
Yeah, she's been around for a while. She was in she played a big role in the Denny O'Neil question series. She was like, I think she helped train him or recuperate him back to health because he like basically dies in the first issue, is what everyone thinks. But she plays a big role in that. She plays a big role in Nightfall because she decides if Batman's worthy again because she's like one of the deadliest assassins in combat. And she tests him, so she's kind of all around, but she's just an assassin. She's like Deathstroke.
Okay, I don't really know her much, but I do like it where you have Talia al Ghul hits her behind with a chair because she's about to kill Catwoman. I just like that. She just takes her out. She's like, "Wait, you're not killing anybody. Like, just stop."
Yeah, Catwoman stands zero chance against Lady Shiva. Which when I read that, I was like, "Well, of course this would happen. Why would it would never have gone any other way in any comic ever? Catwoman always would have gotten her ass kicked."
Yeah, I did like that. And then you get and then you do get the part where, I mean, the whole point of the fight with Ra's al Ghul and everything is Ra's al Ghul tells him that somebody used the Lazarus Pit, which then gets his attention. And the first thing he goes to is he starts thinking about Jason Todd. I think he starts thinking about Jason Todd, right? Or they go there, so. Because Jason Todd knew his villains knew things about him, would have known to break the grappling, how to break the grappling hook, stuff like that. So that's where his brain goes to. And Jason Todd had died in like 10 years before this comic or more in comics.
Mm-hmm. It was in the 80s.
Or something. Yeah, it's a long time. Which, funny fact about that is whether him to live or die was voted in a comic book or a mail in order. You had to check something and vote it. And people voted like unanimously for him to die.
Yeah, I think you could call it. I think you could call a hotline too.
Okay,
but yeah, it was like 2,400 people that decided, hey, he should die.
It was just funny to me. And then the next thing that happens, you have that thing you talked about where that's when Robin comes in, the third Robin, and fights with Catwoman. Catwoman leaves. Huntress ends up fighting Catwoman because you find out Huntress was affected by Scarecrow's gas.
Mm-hmm.
And then Scarecrow comes in on this then. And again, it's one of those situations where Scarecrow's not acting himself and they end up fighting in a cemetery.
Yep.
in a cemetery
Yeah.
where Jason Todd is buried, but nobody knows that but Batman.
Right.
And also in the last issue, that's when you also find out that Two-Face's, like we said before, Two-Face's hush. He shows himself to Jim Gordon, shows himself off to the Joker, and then you see the bandage guy standing in the cemetery again, holding Robin, and you're like, okay, it's Two-Face. Then he takes off the bandages, and it's not Two-Face. It's Jason Todd, the Robin who died, 10 years ago, which again threw me off for a big loop because I'm like, what? That's not how this works. That's not who. I was very confused.
Yeah, it's very, like, I remember reading this and thinking, like, because I grew up with the story where Jason Todd dies. It's called The Death in the Family, and that like blew my mind back then. And then now jumping back into comics is one of the first things I read. It's like, oh my God, they brought him back. Like, what's going on? And you see them duke it out. And the Batman's trying to get information from him, and the guy, Jason Todd, is like, "Oh, you're not talking that much because you're trying to unnerve your opponent. I know all your tricks, blah blah blah." And he's saying all these things that supposedly only Batman would know. But the one thing that Bruce realizes is that Jason Todd, if it really was Jason Todd, he would have at some point called him Bruce. And he never does. And then that's when he starts to say, like, you're not Jason Todd. And I can tell for that very reason.
And in the very end of that fight, you start seeing him falling apart. He starts melting like he's clay.
Mm-hmm.
and I was very confused at this point. I'm like, what? And then you find out that it's Clayface, not actually Jason Todd. They didn't bring him back in the comics yet. That is actually Clayface that disguised himself because he was using fighting styles from Dick Grayson, which is the first Robin, and the third Robin, and not how he should have been fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was also really interesting.
Yeah.
Which also got retcon. But
oh, yeah, the whole thing did. But it's kind of cool how because this is written by Jeff Loeb. We forgot to say that. Who is famous. He's famous for doing a lot of things. One of the most recognizable on TV would be that he wrote Heroes, the show, and I don't know, a bunch of other stuff. The first season was good, but so it was kind of cool though, because the reason I really admired this story is because he somehow found a way to get almost all of Batman's rogue gallery to show up, and they all play like a critical role in this manipulation game that's going on with Hush. And it's just all around awesome because I love Batman's rogues gallery, seeing the Joker, the
Kite
Scarecrow
Man and Quilt Man and Calendar Man. Oh, sorry. Not talking about those?
I like Calendar Man. Hey.
Go get that achievement then in Arkham City where you visit him on certain days like Christmas and Memorial Day and Labor Day and whatever the hell it is.
I actually did do that, but only on my 360. That you could change the internal clock.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's ridiculous. But it's a nice little thing they did. Yeah. So the big showdown goes down, and Batman goes to where Thomas Elliot's parents were killed on a bridge. And he runs into this guy, Leonard, who is his name Leonard?
I think so.
It's Leonard. Yeah.
It's a guy who gets shot in the next scene that you're talking about, so it's okay.
Yeah. And he basically, Leonard, he was a mute, and Batman took him in, and he would fix the Batmobile and like upgrade his weaponry and everything. He was like a really good mechanic. And the one thing Batman could never do is repair his voice. So here's Leonard, and all of a sudden he speaks, and Batman's like, oh my God, you can talk. And Leonard says, I gave him all this information, but he kind of already knew that you were Batman. He knew all this stuff about you. And Batman says, I can forgive you because I understand that happiness, being able to speak can be a hard thing to say no to, which is Thomas Elliot basically fixed his vocal cords. And then immediately, right after he says that, Leonard gets shot twice, once in the head and I think once in the chest. Mm-hmm. And we finally get the big reveal of our villain, Hush, the Bandage Man.
which again is confused you because you're like Two-Face, and then they're fighting, and that's when you find out that Hush says he's Thomas Elliot. They're fighting back and forth. He's shooting them, and you find out the whole reason why he hates Batman is because he wanted his parents to die. He's the one that set up the car crash and put a bomb in the car or something because he wanted to inherit their fortune, and he had to wait years until his mother died to inherit their fortune. And he hated Batman for what his father had did by saving his parent, where Batman had thought he hated him because he was only able to save his mother, not his father.
Right.
Which I just thought was so damn cool, because it's just, here's his childhood friend that hates him for something that he never even knew. Like such because the guy was evil.
Yep.
And he holds his own against Batman too. Like, he takes him down.
Yeah. They had like a good duel, and like the way Jim Lee drew it, there's especially one panel where Hush is just firing directly at Batman, and Batman's like flowing right down into him, ready to drop him. Like, that panel right there was badass. I was like, good God, Jim Lee. Killing it on your first outing.
It's a good issue. And then you have Two-Face, the other looking guy wrapped in bandages. He shoots Hush, and he falls into the water, and he's dead, like all comic book characters. And he disappears, and they make a comment about him being made out of clay again, thinking it was only Clayface. Because the guy that you saw, when you saw Thomas Elliot get shot in the alley, it was never Thomas Elliot, it was actually Clayface.
Right. And the Two-Face hints kind of at like the reason why he turned on him is because he's in control now. He's Harvey Dent, and he's no longer Two-Face is in control. And he knew about the big plan because Hush had gotten all the villains together and said, look, we're going to do this. We're finally going to take down the Batman, and Two-Face happened to be there. So he kind of knew about it, and that's how they showed up and brought Jim Gordon with them, because Jim Gordon's gun, I think, was the one that shot Thomas Elliot. Yeah, so he had to be there too for that, because Two-Face, Harvey Dent told him.
And then you find out there's a couple cool scenes about, and he gets back to the Batcave, like the reason why he thought of Thomas Elliot is because the computer was telling him to think of Thomas Elliot with like subliminal messages. We just kept seeing his picture and stuff in the computer, so he wouldn't even realize it.
Yes,
and then you also find out there's which I thought was kind of cool. And there's a homing device inside his brain that Superman has to like burn it out. That Thomas Elliot put inside his brain.
That's one of the coolest scenes ever. I like how he's like, burn it, and then Clark's like, but I could, and he's like, burn it. And then you just kind of see like his hand on the armchair, like holding on really tight. Yeah.
Which is cool because it's inside his skull, and he just burns it out of his skull. Like, it is a cool scene.
And
yes,
I was just gonna say one of my favorite quotes comes from that scene too, where he's talking to Clark about what's going on, and he says it's weird because sometimes even Superman can be less emotionally involved than I can. And that made me pause for a second and think, yeah, he can. It's kind of crazy. They did a little role reversal.
It's a good story with them. I mean, it's just a good story in general. I really liked it.
Yeah.
But the last part is you find out who's been orchestrating, because you think, okay, Hush is the one orchestrating. It was actually Hush had come to the Riddler, and the Riddler was the one orchestrating this whole thing. Because I did not see that coming.
Yeah, and he knows that Batman is Bruce Wayne.
But he can't tell anybody, because that will prove that he was the one that used the Lazarus Pit, and Ra's al Ghul will kill him. So he can't tell anyone.
Yep, he's got to keep it a secret. And which is great, because when you think about it, like the Riddler being the mastermind behind all of this, I mean, he's kind of a genius, so it makes sense. But at the same time, it's surprising that he would go along with it, because nobody knows who Hush is, you know?
Yeah, it's very interesting. And then also you have where Batman thinks that maybe what they were under. Well, he makes a comment and said that they could both be under Ivy's spell, and she says Hush. And then he gets all pissed off, and then he ends up breaking it off with her, and then they're done. Which is part because comics.
Yep. But to kind of go into it a little bit further, because that's basically the end of the story, at least this story. And Hush does have a lot more graphic novels surrounded it around him that are really good, and I read them right after this one. Like I read Hush Returns, which is a really good one, and that has to do with the Riddler knowing who killed Joker's wife and some story about that. And then Hush like makes Joker leave Gotham City and beats the shit out of him. And there's a good long period where Hush was a main player, and now I would say he's fallen back to a B character, maybe a C, but for a long time he was the number one guy.
He's a very he's not in a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's a very unused character.
Yeah, I would say that as well. I think that he could always be a big player, but as like right now what's going on in comics is they have the Court of Owls, which is a new game players as well. And
that's the new 52 you're talking about, though.
Yeah, but it's changed over time.
Yeah, that's pretty good though, by the way. But I'm like, that's not recent. That's like the same year Captain America, the first Avenger came out.
Oh my God, is it really?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Long time.
All right, well, I'm old people. But
yeah, a couple of things that they did retcon is you find out that it was actually Jason Todd for part of that fight, and then he switched out, and then it was Clayface because, spoiler alert, Jason Todd ends up coming back, and the one that died. I mean, that's kind of, there's movies about it and all sorts of stuff. So
yeah, so basically what it is the when Infinity Crisis was going on, Superboy Prime punched a bunch of holes in like the time stream. And started setting. I'm not going to explain the whole thing, but it started trying to set things right. And they tried to bring Jason back from the dead, Talia and Roz, and or I think it was just Talia, and she's trying to help Jason Todd be normal, and he's just completely wacko, he's crazy, and she finally just says whatever and pushes him back into the Lazarus pit, and then he finally comes back. He's still crazy, but he finally comes back with a purpose, and the purpose is to get back at his mentor who didn't kill the man who killed him, which was Joker. And that goes all the way into the Red Hood stories, which we won't get into.
No, because not in this episode. Definitely not this episode.
Yeah.
Because I want to read it someday. And it might happen coming up here in this show.
Yeah.
It's not going to be comic specials anymore. It's going to be Batman specials. We're going to talk about Batman again, guys.
Our new show, Batman. Yep.
It's gonna watch. It's gonna happen. Okay. One thing I did want to say is that we kind of had touched on, the drawing is very, very good. It's worth reading. I mean, it's hell in print all the damn time. You could buy it on Amazon. I don't think it's that much. But if you like comics, even though yes, we did spoil everything, but you still could read it. You still could enjoy it. It's comics. It doesn't matter if you already know what's going to happen. It's still just fun to read it. I mean, plus for spoiling something that came out in 2002 and it's 2019, I don't feel any remorse.
Yeah, and people have to remember too that the art does tell half the story. So you got to check out Jim Lee's art in this. It's just superb. It's amazing.
Oh, and did you watch the animated movie? There also was an animated movie for this that just came out recently.
I was scrolling through YouTube and I saw 4 videos already saying Hush, Batman anime movie, why? And just rage icons everywhere.
That's how you get views though.
Well, that's true, but I think after the animated movie Killing Joke, how they screwed that one up, I wouldn't doubt they'd screw this one up.
Sorry, sir, that movie is great. Even though I know it's different, it's great. So yeah. You don't want to hear my opinion on that one because you won't like it.
Oh, no. Okay, let me just say this. The Batgirl portion of that movie is bad. The rest of it after that's okay.
Entertaining. Work. We're not talking about that this episode.
No.
We can get to that some other day.
We will.
Yes, because I really want to watch it again. All right, I think we should go to Shelfer Box.
Yes.
I know our first issue, we try to give us some kind of cool name, but fuck it. We're just going back to Shelfer Box because, why not? It works.
Yeah. It's what you guys are familiar with it, so we're just going to use that.
We can't figure out anything better. So
no.
I'm going to go first. This is definitely going on the shelf. Will I ever read it again? I might. I have, it was a really good Batman story. And for a guy who doesn't really read comics, I really, really enjoyed it. Like, I read the first couple issues, took me I was kind of reading kind of slow. And then I got to a point where I just couldn't stop reading. I read like the last 6 issues in a day. It just was it was really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good story. I mean, he's a character that his introduction is all this is introduction, and it does a very good job of telling the story about Batman and making Batman more of a human than he's portrayed at times in the comics and video games, and it really brings out his inner side. And I really enjoyed it. The art was great, the story kept me entertained, and definitely going on the shelf. And I'm going to recommend it to everybody also now. So
nice.
How about you, Stefan?
Yeah, it's going to go on the shelf. I mean, the whole period that I didn't read comics, I will always regret that I just, for whatever reason, just stopped. And I mean, to be honest, to be fair, I should say, a lot of comic shops did move further away from me. And at that time, I still didn't have a car or a license yet. I mean, I was 13 and 14 or whatever. But when I came back into comics, and this was one of the first things I fell into, I mean, this was just like frosting on the cake. It was like, oh my God, like, this is amazing. Like, oh my God, Jim Lee's at DC now. Like, one of the best artists ever, and I even followed Jim Lee to this day. I mean, I watch his live streams on Twitch and everything, and he's a cool dude. So I don't know. I like the Hush character. I like where they took him after this even. I thought it was a great addition to Batman's Rogues Gallery. I wish I saw more of them. And yeah, this is definitely going on the shelf. It's a great comic.
Okay. So we both put it on the shelf. I kind of figured that was going to happen because this was a good comic, like our last comic. So
yeah, that's true.
That's all right. But no, I think we all go through phases like that where we don't do something that we enjoyed for a while because we consider it childish. I went through a phase where I didn't really play games for like about a year to 2 years because my girlfriend at the time, who ended up turning out to be crazy, had told me, "Oh, it's childish to play games and this and that," and I listened to her like an idiot. And it's normal I feel like for people to go through that, but if it's something you enjoy, like comics or games, as long as you're being, smart with your money and you're paying your bills, taking care, like enjoy yourself. That's what life is about. I mean, I'm not going to say, spend your rent money on comics or games because that's just stupid. But, like we all have our hobbies. We all have things that we enjoy. And that's the purpose of it. Like, it's not childish as long as you're not, being, able to find a way to afford it, without hurting yourself or hurting other people. You're fine.
Exactly. Yeah. And never let your girlfriend, no matter what she says, never let her say, "Hey, you do this? Gross." Forget her. Break up with her. Keep doing
Unless it's something where it actually is gross, like killing people. Then it's okay for say it's gross. But
yeah,
if reading comics or playing games, no.
And in the event of that, turn yourself into the authorities, and do not eat your girlfriend.
That's not where I expect to go. But hey, at the end, after we do Shelf or Box, who knows what's going to happen? When I try to get the plugs, you never know.
Yeah, well, go ahead, Mike. Just plug us out.
All right. If you enjoyed this episode, we are going to be, if you're still listening, we're going to keep bringing you one comic episode a month. Keep sprinkling them in along with same with a video game movie. Keep sprinkling them in and give a little bit, different stuff to maybe give you ears. If you did like this episode, there are a couple other comic episodes to listen to. Just the Superman, Freddy vs. Jason, and there's also an old Batman episode, or episode 3, if you want to hear what we thought about Batman back in February. So please take a listen to that. Our awesome intro came courtesy of Mike Stoney, aka Balby, from the Cool Kid Squad from his EP Bite the Bullet. So please follow. There'll be a link in the show notes on YouTube. And I want to thank everyone for taking a chance out, listen to another one of our bonus episodes. And everyone have a wonderful day.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I'm tired.